Make sure you don't have another window open with.
Mute yourself and make sure you don't have another window open. Okay. We'll see if apologies if that happens again, everyone.
I think we're good.
Yeah, make sure you don't have two Crowdcast windows open. I'm going to do the same. Just make sure I don't have two Crowdcasts open. Just a moment, everybody. Just making sure that there's not anything on my side. I've got enough windows open that it could be could be me. All right. Well, welcome, Ruth and Jesse. Thank you so much for joining the launch ceremony that we've had underway. It's been quite an emotional and exciting day. So Regen Network, our blockchain is now at, let me just check and look at the, we're at 1,573 blocks. So we went live 10 seconds after 10 seconds after 1500 UTC, and yeah. So now there is a global ecological ledger, and a core part of what we're trying to do, of course, is around empowering and engaging land stewards and land stewardship and ecological regeneration. And I wanted to invite each of you from different parts of the world, different perspectives, but very important sort of players, I believe, in approaching what it means to regenerate ecosystems. So I'd love for each of you to just give a little bit of an introduction to the community about who you are, what you're passionate about, what you're doing in the world of land stewardship. And then after that, we can get into a hopefully dynamic conversation about what the opportunities are, what the challenges are, and how we're going to work together to regenerate the planet. So Ruth, I'll pass it to you first, and then you can pass it over to Jesse.
Thank you. So my name is Ruth.
Just so you know.
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Wow, where to start? So first of all, I'm also super excited because I've been following Regen Network from the early days. So great that we're finally here. My name's Ruth. I head up what we call the Earth Care team at Lush Cosmetics in the UK. But I'm also part of the regenerative movement. So within Lush, we've done quite a lot of work in supply chains, where we're also partnering with communities who are stewarding, large amounts of land, from forests in Sierra Leone to the Amazon to Sumatra. And then as part of Lush, we have an award called Spring Prize. And in partnership with Buckminster Fuller Institute and Lush, we launched an initiative called Regenerosity, which aims to also support, financing and funding. We call it finding, funding, learning from, and celebrating regenerative initiatives around the world. So again, in a growing partnership with Regen Network on how can we really, support land stewards to make sure that the exchange of wealth and all the wealth that they're bringing in living capital, human, social, cultural capital can also, be supported and grown. And then apart from that, I'm also one of the co-founders of Realliance. And that's also a large network of land stewards, but working on the nexus between humanitarian and development with regeneration. So how can we activate regenerative practices also in that world? Maybe I'll stop there. And I've been talking to loads of people about Regen Network, and everyone is really excited, from indigenous communities to, the pieces of land that we're stewarding as Lush. Yeah, we're all really excited about this.
Well, thank you so much, Gregory, for having us here. And it's such a privilege to be a part of something that's so big. And likewise, I've been following this project for so long, and to finally have it come to fruition I know it's just the beginning, but it's an exciting beginning to be sure. So my name is Jesse Smith, and I'm the Director of Land Stewardship for White Buffalo Land Trust. We're a 501c3 nonprofit based here in Central Coastal California, with our fields of focus on both direct land stewardship as well as ecological monitoring, research, and then education and training. We also have a natural products food brand that is the culmination of a lot of that work that we do on the ground, as well as carrying that story forward into the marketplace. I've had the privilege over years of work both in agricultural management as well as agricultural system design to actually work on numerous projects in association with Lush. So it's a privilege to be on this call as well, whether it be Maasai and aloe production in Kenya or a jojoba production here in the United States and in Arizona. And so it's great to see a lot of the players coming to the table who are looking at this from different perspectives. And for us, you know, we see that there's so much potential for land stewards to have identity preservation all the way through to the marketplace in platforms like Savory's ecological outcome verification, while also providing ecosystem service payments that go beyond just carbon. And so I love the fact that we have an opportunity now to be able to provide the resources, the technology, the approach, and the language to land stewards that allows them to really do what they do best, which is care for soil health and water resources and increase biodiversity and make a livelihood that's worth living. And we see this as such a huge milestone in realizing that future that we all hope to achieve within our lifetime, which is you know, really living in fully functioning ecosystems and, you know, sipping clean water from springs and walking in intact forests and healthy, you know, diverse food for our families. And so, yeah, I'm really grateful to be here and to be part of the conversation.
Thanks, Jesse. Awesome. So we have someone who's managing grasslands and mixed forest on the Californian coast. We have someone who is working with indigenous people in the Amazon to help protect and regenerate that ecosystem. I'd love for maybe I'll direct this to you first, Ruth, but just to what are some of the hazards of commodifying carbon, right? And what are some of the things that we as a community need to be attentive to and understand and uplift in order to successfully protect and regenerate Amazonian ecosystems and indigenous peoples on the terms sort of sourced from and honoring that place and those cultures? What do we need to be aware of, and how can we as a network be supporting people really and ecosystems and not sort of abstract concepts of commodification?
Yeah, great question. I think at Regenerosity, we've been asking ourselves that as well, like, how do you engage in right relationship? I think is a fundamental question that we need to ask ourselves. And for me, it's to do with self-determination. So like, because of course there is a market around this and there are financial flows. And at the moment, we're talking about communities that are really, really struggling with COVID, very little, like, you know, with the government in Brazil, there's been no support for indigenous communities. Yesterday, we're also talking to communities in Indonesia, and like they're all really struggling. So being able to be recognized as like stewards and wealth holders is amazing and can really support them in ensuring land rights. So anything that we can support with land rights, with self-determination, with demarcation of land. There is also, I know this is really tricky, but there is also something that if the communities are seen to be part of an economy, a regenerative economy, almost the government leaves them alone, you know, like because it's seen that, oh yeah, they are, you know, so how can we engage them in really this regenerative economy, but on their terms? And I think also connecting to their belief system and like listening to their stories. There is a really beautiful project happening in Brazil right now where they're working with local communities on how they measure biodiversity. But of course, they're not calling that. they also have their own ways of reading their landscape and reading the ecosystem. How can we then translate that to, like the Western scientific terms, and make sure that there is a dialogue and we don't have to force them to suddenly do carbon accounting on what's their sacred territory? So I think the narrative and the storytelling and doing it on their terms is really important, while supporting, self-determination and land rights. I think that's what I would say, I think, to begin with. But this is a deep discussion that, and really a decolonial mindset, where this is about honoring and rewarding the true wealth holders of the planet at this point.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you. And we can circle back and go another layer deeper on this. I think it's going to be an ongoing theme of and sort of our success at Regen Network at building community around living capital and the appropriate system to value and uplift and regenerate that. We'll have to get this right and iterate on it and learn and grow and just have it in the forefront. Jesse, I'd love for you to just comment on, from your place, the place that you're stewarding, as a land steward who's been active in your bioregion for many, many years, leading and learning. What are you hopeful about that, maybe that we don't have yet built, but that you're seeing the possibility that by coordinating and engaging with Regen Network, with a global community, you can actually sort of connect with and regenerate from your place in a unique way? What are you seeing? What's the sort of like, I don't want to do the problem solution sort of dichotomy, but what are the tensions that are present for you that you feel like may be resolved or sort of actually offer solutions in the larger context of Regen Network? Sorry for a clumsy question.
No, I think I got with the heart of what you were going for there, and I appreciate that, because I see so much of what we hold in our community as a reflection of what the larger systems in which we're nested hold as value. So if there's larger ecologies of human systems that are valuing carbon credits, then that's what people are looking at in the carbon farming as the carbon farming solution, if you will. And I think that, kind of to your last question as well, there's inherent issues with the commodification of these singular kind of indicators of ecological health, like carbon, like soil carbon. Whereas we know so much of land stewardship is quantifiable, but it's also, there's this qualitative component that you really have to live and feel. And when people show up in a place, you're like, wow, this place just feels different. Like there's an amazing energy. And anyone who's traveled can recognize that when you step into a community or a region that has a vibration that truly exudes a story of place, whether it's the color of the hills or the taste of the wine or the pride in a way that they fold a sourdough loaf or whatever it may be. And so, for me, I think it still comes back to this ecological function of water resources and biodiversity and soil health. But biodiversity, once again, is something that is very nuanced and context specific, because each region is going to have their own kind of higher and lower levels of valuation on different components of the overall biodiversity conversation. So for us, it may be that we're at the southern tip of tan oak forests, or it may be a specific amphibian in our waterways or fish that has unique spawning grounds. And so for us, the quantification tools for ecological function in service of those components of the biodiversity are paramount, but they need to be nested within a structure, a framework of approach that is globally held. So no matter where you are on Earth, you can approach your own community's needs through this framework and decide how we are going to address the monitoring to make any claims against higher or lower function. And so I think that this tool provides the opportunity for us to nest a lot of the conversation in a global framework of approach while being very nuanced and context specific within our regions. And it gives us the opportunity to trade in that regional market as well. I mean, this feels to me like the farmer's market of ecological, payments, where, you can go anywhere in the world and there's a farmer's market, but where are you going to shop? You're going to shop at the one that's local. And up until now, we haven't had a kind of an opportunity for even a boutique market of ecological payments. So the tech company that's down the street from the farm can actually pay to offset their carbon, or even better, inset their emissions based on how they're sourcing their food for their cafeteria. And that gateway to actually send payments from this organization to this entity has not existed in the past. And this just offers so much opportunity for that regionalization of ecosystem function and the valuation of it.
Yeah, I love that invitation to think about not just sort of like the global sort of carbon as a commodity, multinational, transnational sort of context, but sort of zooming back down to how do stakeholders who may know each other use these tools to create the right value exchange for the outcomes that their community needs. I love that, and I hope that is a core pillar of what we would like to be able to achieve together, for sure. Ruth, it sounded like you wanted to hop in.
Yeah, I also just want to say, I'm in the northeast of Brazil, and the town where I am, they have a project that maybe now is 15 years old, where the community pays. So all the businesses in it's a tourist place, so they pay an amount to a series of communities living on the buffer zone of the national park here, an income to protect. So it's like paying for, avoided deforestation and paying for their protection services. This has been going on for 15 years. And the whole tourism here is like an ecological tourism connected to, how can we really support the whole community to preserve this ecosystem? And imagine, but it can't scale. It's really hard to scale something like this. So I think Regen Network allows projects like this to scale globally, and making sure that wherever we are in the world, also as a consumer, I know that as I engage in the world, I'm also supporting, the regeneration of ecosystems through, the activities where I am actually. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'd love to just, maybe invite. There's so many things that we can talk about, and we have so little time. So I'd love to just invite each of you to just maybe take a moment to paint a little bit of a vision for people who may be less connected to the land or projects where people are engaging with land stewardship, to just paint a picture of a thriving, healthy, regenerative landscape and thriving, healthy, regenerative economy from a context, context that and love. Just like take us on a little bit of a journey to what the world looks like in 10 years. When things are really, when ecological health is at the center of how we're making decisions and how we're valuing products. And yeah, so Jesse, I'll pass this one to you first, and just let each of you take a moment to take us on a little tour.
Yeah, well, our organization for the last 2 years has been in a deep process of running a capital campaign to acquire the rights to steward a 1,000-acre ranch here in coastal California. And so much of that process has been one of envisioning the next, couple decades of that process of stewardship, and what is the highest potential that we could achieve. And so, looking at a landscape that is very indicative of Mediterranean systems around the world, with oak woodlands and savannas and annual grasslands and, riparian corridors with willows, natural springs and sage scrub brush and some of the managed agroforestry of orchard and vineyards. It already has a fantastic, kind of ground to begin from. But as we start to look at what interventions we can kind of employ to increase the function of that landscape, I see this future where the agricultural enterprises are supporting the livelihoods of those land stewards, and the infrastructure, the human infrastructure and development is supporting the engagement within our community to, have learning opportunities from K to Gray, and people of all walks of life are coming through, and all parts of the world are able to feel what it's like to stand under an oak woodland that has 200-year-old oaks as well as young saplings, and to see naturally running springs getting more plentiful every year. And I hope that we can get to a place where we're able to start to move past this paradigm of trying to stop ecological degradation to one where we're able to sustain those life-giving and life-supporting ecological functional groups to a place where we can creatively design what comes next, where we can start to create instruments, and we can start to create clothing and dyes, and we can start to, really evolve the culture around land stewardship instead of just trying to slow the steady decline. And that's where I think that I'm really seeing the potential of where we're heading, is moving away from, just an assumption that just by growing food, fiber, and medicine on our landscapes, we're going to innately do harm, to one where we can see ourselves as keystone species in ecological regeneration, and we can creatively apply our wit and wisdom towards those ends. So yeah, that's my hope, and that's my vision.
Awesome. Thank you, Ruth.
I think for me as well, I'm Brazilian, and I'm in Brazil right now in one of the last remaining fragments of Atlantic rainforest. So I do think it's aligning human activity and human nature to the wild. So, as life, like if we are, acting as life and really honoring our role as human on this planet, for me, it's all about increasing complexity and diversity, so we can also see the new emerging properties of life. And then I think in a very pragmatic way, it's how can, every interaction and every exchange be regenerative. So whether it's how I talk to people and my relations, and how, we build peace, and because our connection is always building trust, from how do we exchange value, and how everything that I eat and I wear and I buy is all working towards building a regenerative, like really restoring and repairing and creating diversity in ecosystems. And where I am here, like when I look outside my window here, like it's the 8th most biodiverse, place in the world. How can we create bioregional economies that are based on agroforestry, imagining replanting all the degraded land for pasture in the Amazon that should really be forest, to, feed the people with tree crops. Companies like Lush and the whole supply chain being truly regenerative. Like we already have carbon sequestering materials, carbon sequestering packaging, carbon sequestering ingredient. Imagine doing the whole business that is based on carbon sequestering, raw materials. And basically having the whole economy serving life. I think it's a bit utopic, but yeah, eco-socialism with decentralized governance and no authoritarian governments anywhere. Yeah, that would be my dream.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I think one of the things from my perspective that's so important is empowering the solutions that work in a place. And so whether it's decentralized eco-socialism for communities in Latin America, or it's sort of eco-libertarianism for communities in North America, or it's sort of some sort of adjusted neoliberalism with natural capital that supports real regeneration and has market mechanisms that allow sort of governance that uplifts and supports the determination and sovereignty of people and the planet. We need a system that allows for the different lenses that people, land stewards, companies, governments, communities, watersheds are all using in order to, answer the questions about how to govern themselves and how to manage themselves. So I'm, just in full resonance and support of empowering what each of you is saying, and then the multiplicity of other voices that are needed to make this actually come true. So thank you both for for taking the time to share a little bit of your vision and a little
All right, wrapping up.
slice of your context. And Dave, you're about to hop in here and announce the next session.
Oh,
So.
sorry, I realized I wasn't mic'd up. Hi, thank you, everyone. Ruth, Jesse, always pleasure to see you, Jesse. Miss you. I'll see you in a little bit. Ruth, nice to connect with you. And Gregory, going to see you in just a second. Everyone stay tuned. We're going to head over to International Carbon Accounting. Big ups to the Regen Network team. Be right back.